from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talking Catholic. I'm Jen Mauro, and with me, as always, Mike Walsh.
Hello, Jen. How are you?
Hello, Mike. Excellent.
This has been a busy week for the two of us. We've had lots of things going on, and to the point where we had to pre-record the interview that's going to come after this introduction. It ended up having to be a short interview because I had to go off and do meetings. So I feel bad. Our interviewee got shortchanged a little bit. Instead of getting a solid 45 minutes in, he got about 38 minutes in. So you're going to get about 18 minutes of Jen and I. Exactly.
These shenanigans.
Although I am surprised at how many people have come up to me recently and say like the hosts, they enjoy listening to the hosts, which I find hard to believe.
Because we are the hosts and we don't even want to hear ourselves.
I know. It's really weird. Carrie, the whole bit, it's like Mary and Ellen and Bress, it's like, I don't know. It's weird.
It's because we're characters.
That part's true. I didn't design the podcast for that. It's not a host intended podcast. Like, I've always wanted it to be about the people who are coming on.
Right.
So to hear positive feedback about the hosts, I find mildly disconcerting.
Maybe it's just because it's positive feedback about, us personally, and we're like, yeah. Do we deserve that?
Not really.
Probably not.
But we do appreciate those of you who enjoy listening to us. So that's nice, because you're going to get a little extra today.
What's been really great is that, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, that Bishop Williams, our new coadjutor bishop, has been walking. No.
I can't wait to see where this goes.
The look, I was like, oh my goodness, I already said something wrong. No, he's been going around doing deanery meetings.
He has.
And we both have been at these deanery meetings as well. I've been meeting a lot of parishioners from all across the diocese. And to your point, Mike, they've been saying how much they like the Catholic Star Herald and the podcast. So I love being out in the community to get the feedback, because how we always say we don't often get feedback unless we did something wrong and they email us and say, we don't know if we like that podcast. No, just kidding.
Then we do get feedback. No, I agree with you. And it's actually one of the downsides of, in my case, being an executive director, and a downside to you being a managing editor, is we're oftentimes stuck in our offices. Thankfully, there's a lot of people in the diocese that go out and they're in the schools and the parishes, and they bring back information to us, and I'm very grateful for that. But the truth of the matter is, there's no way to replicate actually being out and talking to people. So that's why I volunteer for so many photography jobs, is so that I am in fact out in the community and talking. Well, I don't necessarily want to talk to anybody, but people will come up and talk to me. And it does give me a lot of feedback that I need. So I genuinely do appreciate that. And, we've been talking about these deanery meetings for a couple of weeks now on various podcasts. So it might be a little old to the listeners, but they really have been an exciting time, even not necessarily related to Bishop Williams, but the fact that, the communities are coming together, of so many parishes coming together and praying together, and having meal together and fellowship together, and having all the priests come together and meet with Bishop Williams as a unit, and having all the deacons doing the same thing. It has been beneficial on many levels, and it's a reminder to me that I know we're now pretty far beyond the COVID times, but it really does showcase again just how important it is for all of us to get together, in our communities, and then pulling other communities into that area, because a lot of great conversations go on, and it's good to see people.
And we're going to have one of those opportunities again just in a couple of days on Saturday, October 26th, because we have the Diocesan Marian Pilgrimage coming up to the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C.
I forget, have you taken a Marian pilgrimage before?
I have done one, but I can't remember, I apologize, if it was in my work with the Diocese of Trenton or here with the Diocese of Camden, because sometimes I know this sounds crazy, but sometimes I get that and the March for Life mixed up because I'm on a bus. I always go on a bus. I've never gone not with parishioners because it's a great opportunity to get to meet new people. And I always choose a different parish to go with because once you get to know somebody, I'm like, great, I know them and I can't wait to see them, but I want to go on a different bus so I can meet even more people.
Sure.
So, but I will be there at this one on October 26th. Pete Sanchez will be there. I'm
vacillating.
You went 2 years ago, or the last one, right?
I went to the last one. Yeah, it's biannual. So I went 2 years ago. It was my first one. It was a great trip. I did not go on a bus ride down because I don't want to meet anybody new. Well, more importantly, I don't want to be stuck with anybody. And I want to listen. I want to. More importantly,
I don't know which one was worse. I don't want to talk to anybody or be stuck with them.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
But I like listening to my podcast, and I like a nice 2-hour drive to DC to listen to my podcast. But then when I get down there, I'm hanging out with everybody. It is a great event. We didn't really talk about what it is before I go into anything further, but it was wonderful. I'm glad I finally got a chance to do it. I would absolutely do it again. The Marian pilgrimage, to I think the largest church in the United States is the Basilica in Washington, D.C. It's beautiful to look at. It's an entire campus. It's on the campus of Catholic University. I've been to it a number of times. But only to the Marian pilgrimage once. It's magnificent to look at. And as a photographer, I was given free range of the entire facility. So I was able to go up into the rafters. I found all the secret passages all the way around. I was able to get all these really cool photo shots. It was a wonderful experience, genuinely wonderful experience. There's a procession of parishes that is part of it. So each parish comes up with their parish banner, and as they're walking in, that entire day is dedicated to the Diocese of Camden. So, I mean, many people can come there, and certainly there will be visitors there, but it is a mass for the people of the Diocese of Camden. So it'll be our bishops, our electors, our musicians. And it's a wonderful day to sort of sit there and, appreciate the magnificence of the Catholic Church, to be in the nation's capital. And then, it's an incredible structure. I mean, it really is. It really, I was talking about this, I think we talked about it on the interview that's about to happen.
Yes.
About how being in these that I grew up in a mission church, and being able to have access to these beautiful structures really is a great way of seeing not only the enormity of our faith, but, what we have to look forward to perhaps in a human's eye when we get to heaven and the magnificence of heaven. So it's a good thing to go to. Yeah. Plus the meeting people and talking and stuff and pray.
I've only been to the Basilica once. On the Marian pilgrimage that may or may not have been in the Diocese of Camden, but it is actually, it's the Diocese of Trenton. I remember now. There's so many nooks and crannies where these different statues and shrines and
all the little side altars.
I mean, you could stumble across one and then I learned more about saints I'd never even heard of.
Yeah,
that's what really blew me away.
And I'm not trying to undersell this. The food court in the basement, outstanding. And the bookstore.
I was going to say our colleague Pete Sanchez raves about the bookstore.
Yeah,
Pete's always getting a book no matter where he goes, as am I. But he loves. We were just talking about this the other day. He said he couldn't wait to go because he wanted to go to the bookstore.
The last time we were there, the talking head from EWTN, he was signing books there.
Oh
shoot! Why can't I remember his name? It's the dude.
Not the dude.
Yeah, the dude.
Oh, I love that guy.
Yeah, that dude was signing books there. I cannot believe that I cannot pull this guy's name. He's like super famous. It should be on the tip of my tongue. Okay. At any rate, it is a great experience, and it's a wonderful thing to see. It's even if you don't have the opportunity to go on a Marian pilgrimage, which obviously is, we are focused on our devotion to Mary and the good graces that she brings us, good Catholics, in the name of the Lord and in God. It's a great event to go to, but definitely go down. If you do drive down by yourself, you don't take a bus, you get the benefit of touring around the city too. Most listeners know I love Washington, D.C. It's one of my favorite places to visit. It's made for tourism. I mean, it's big, wide streets, lots of free museums. It's a great place to go to.
Good coffee.
I was not drinking coffee when I...
I've got the best place I'm going to write down for you after this podcast. It's an Ethiopian coffee spot. And I mean, first off, the coffee is so strong. It'll keep you awake for your drive home.
Sweet.
But it is unbelievable. Every time I go to Washington, I go there to get an Ethiopian coffee.
And you know what I do? I either make a run to the Bojangles. Because
that's right.
It's in the South. That's right. That's why one of the reasons I drive back is so I can hit a Bojangles. And usually either on the way down or the way back, I will also hit a Waffle House. Because we don't have them here in the North, so we got to hit them in the South.
You got to hit the Waffle House.
Of course.
Oh, well, you know what, listeners?
But you know what?
If you go...
Ethiopian coffee, too. I'll do that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of different tiers of that. T-I-E-R-S, not T-E-A-R-S, tiers. Would you please post photos, if you go, of a Bojangles bag and perhaps a Waffle House?
Yes. We should really, first of all, we should start collaborating with Waffle House and Bojangles, even though there's none in the area.
We get sponsors.
But, I do, at some point, I've talked about this for many, many years, is creating some Talking Catholic swag. I do think we really do need to figure out some way of providing that. Because we do every now and again have people that request Talking Catholic stuff. So, I know there are shops where you can, put our designs on certain shirts, and then it's, we don't have to buy a ton of it ahead of time. It's print on demand. I feel like we should do that.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we need a storefront for Talking Catholic.
A storefront.
We do. I think we need a storefront for Talking Catholic, and we're expanding. You're going to hear about in a few minutes. You're going to hear about a new show that's affiliated with Talking Catholic. We're hopefully going to have a Spanish language show pretty soon that's going to be affiliated with Talking Catholic. Plus, we have some new YouTube ideas that are coming forth. So, we're looking for all sorts of expansion. Yeah.
Well, before we have the Marian pilgrimage, though, we have just a couple days before that, we have an exciting night.
We do.
Catholic Charities.
We do. The Catholic Charities annual dinner. I think by the time this episode is out there, tickets will have closed for the evening, but we are looking forward to showcasing all the great work that's being done in the diocese by both Catholic Charities and people who are living the Matthew 25 life in their communities who are going to be recognized at that event. So it's going to be a big deal. The next time we record, hopefully I'll have some feedback on how that night went. Oh, man.
We should do a show from the Catholic Charities. Record it. Because
we
have all the Disciples of Mercy.
Listen,
right
you
there.
say that, but do you know how close we came to being the hosts of the event? One of the committee members wanted you and I to go up and be co-hosts of the Catholic Charities annual dinner, because apparently they think we're funny. I don't know how regularly they listen, but but no, it is a great event. Yeah, we should do something like that. We certainly should have the people who have been awarded on there, or at least maybe bring them on in groups or something like that, because they are certainly deserving of as much focus as we can give them, even though that is not something they're interested in.
I know.
Which they repeat to us on a regular basis. I've never had a winner say, you know what, I'm glad I'm finally getting spotlight.
Right.
It's always I don't want to do this. But there is something else I wanted to bring up too. So, the first full week of November is Vocations Week in the Catholic Church.
Oh, Vocations Awareness Week, yeah.
Yep. And starting in late October, the bishop is going to be hosting Andrew's dinners.
What Andrew's dinners? I don't know what that is.
Wow.
I know, I'm really surprised because, I don't know you're looking at me because I've worked in the church a long time. I don't know what Andrew's dinners are.
I just want to point out that we did talk about this before he came on, and that's called acting. That is.
Well, I really didn't know what they were.
Jen Mauro, the thespian.
We all know that I do.
Just let it go. Something similar is going to happen later in this episode.
I think it's really embarrassing.
You don't want to miss it.
You don't.
Andrew's dinners, which take their name from St. Andrew, the first called, are an opportunity for the bishop to gather with young men, ages 16 through college, to reflect on the call of God in their own lives. They will take place from 5 to 7:30 p.m. in the various deaneries of the Diocese of Camden. If you are interested in attending, or you know someone who is interested in attending, please contact your pastor. Your pastor has to be the person to recommend someone to attend this Andrews dinner. So on Tuesday, October 29th, Deanery 4 will have one at St. Joseph's Parish in Somers Point. On Wednesday, October 30th, there'll be one at All Saints Parish in Millville. On Tuesday, November 5th, there'll be one at Holy Angels in Woodbury. On Wednesday, November 6th, we'll have one at Mary, Queen of All Saints in Pensauken. And on Thursday, November 7th, there'll be one at St. Andrew the Apostle, St. Andrew the Apostle in Gibbsboro. And you can learn more about these at camdenpriest.org/Andrew Dinner. And these are something that I know the diocese has been doing off and on for years. And to tell you the truth, these Andrew dinners are probably one of the most successful elements of vocations. We can do as many YouTube videos, podcasts about vocations. We can do as many stories as we can about vocations in the Catholic Star Herald. But the truth of the matter is while God certainly uses us and our resources, the truth of the matter, the most successful ones are those personal encounters between a priest and a lay man who might have a calling to the priesthood, or the bishop and his time with someone who's interested in becoming a priest. There's simply no way to replicate that in any other form. So if you or someone has ever had the call to the priesthood, consider an Andrews dinner or a look and see at any of our seminaries. Talk to your local pastor. If it's not your pastor, you want to talk to another priest, call out to a priest. I guarantee you, a priest will be more than happy to talk about his process through the
vocation story.
His vocation story. Yeah. I don't know why I use that phrase all the time. I could not pull that just then.
What, vocation story?
Vocation story. Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember. Yeah. But it really is important, and those personal encounters are far more impactful. And every single seminarian I talk to, they will reference that. Every time we talk to a young priest, they reference those early encounters with a priest and just how important they were.
The mentorship and friendship and spiritual mentors.
It just there's no technological way of doing that. It has to be done. It is most successfully done in those personal encounters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is we often talk about discerning towards the priesthood. They're also important for discerning away. There are people who through this process at least get the answer. I think I have a calling. They go through the process and go, nope, I don't have a calling. I thought I did, but I don't. I have a calling for something else. And that is just as important as the calling to the priesthood is knowing that direction in life. The seminarians we have now are fantastic, and we love them. But there are some great Catholic gentlemen in the Diocese of Camden mm-hmm. who considered the seminary, some who went into the seminary and realized it wasn't for them, moved out, and they are now outstanding members of the Catholic faith outside of the priesthood. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. And they're some of those hardcore Catholics I've ever seen.
Well, I think it's time to introduce our guest, and who we have with us today is Michael Matulewicz. May have gotten that. Everybody knows. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Yay. I got one finally. So Michael is joining us in a shocking development. We're going to be talking about Mike Walsh's favorite topic, competition.
Other podcasters.
Other podcasters. And Michael has a podcast that he's working on, and can you let us know the name of it, and has it started yet?
So the name of it is Pierogi to Prayer.
Pierogi to Prayer.
Pierogi to Prayer, yes.
Okay, I like it.
Mm-hmm. One of those things I really like. One of those things I struggle with. I'm working on it.
Stop, you're too much.
It's all going to be about pierogi recipes, right? I mean, that's what the bulk of the podcast
Well, even
is
if it was about recipes, it's a demonstrative skill. But I invite you to come over when we're making pierogi and join the assembly line.
As you know, as Jen was well aware, I always try to get food on this thing. Come to think of it, the previous podcast was all about food. So
yes.
Anytime you want to do a pierogi podcast for this podcast, we're on board.
Well, I like the way Michael says it. Say pierogi.
Pierogi.
Yeah, it's like the real way.
You got to roll the R a little bit.
Yeah,
that is true. I can't do it either.
Yeah.
So pierogi's to prayer. what's it about?
So, Pierogi to Prayer, it is an outgrowth of a... So let me back up a little bit.
Sure.
I'm here on behalf of the St. Joseph's Polish Apostolate of the Diocese of Camden.
The prettiest church in New Jersey.
The prettiest church in New Jersey. Thank you very much for the compliment.
It really is.
We tell that all the time, and it's so the church itself is like you said, it's an amazingly beautiful edifice, but the apostolate is a relatively new invention. It came about as a result of the mergers in 2018. St. Joseph's Polish parish had been there since 1892, for which the church was built. But with different trends and all the studies and everything that went on to bring about the mergers, it was decided, and I think in a very proactive and with a lot of wisdom, the diocese established the St. Joseph's Polish Apostolate because we were able to kind of go beyond our usual borders. The original charter of the church had said to serve people of Polish descent living in the city of Camden. Mm-hmm. That was who the church was supposed to minister to. Well, now we have the entire territory of the diocese, which is a wonderful gift. And it was something that we had some challenges in merging with the cathedral, but we really took it and ran with it. And now this was more of an effort to expand our reach outside of kind of our usual circles and using a modern media platform. Originally, I had talked with our pastor, Father Adam Chihosky, who I know has been here many times.
Oh, sure.
I had finally learned how to pronounce his last name. That one took me a while.
Well,
too.
that is actually a story in and of itself, but we can talk about that later. I had this idea to have a Polish saint of the month with a little biography and a reflection. We were trying to figure out how best to do it. Should we just have it printed out and put in the bulletin? Should we just announce it at Mass? And it kind of snowballed a little bit into something that, well, we could do this a little bit differently. Maybe we could do this in a media environment. And I've been relatively new to listening to podcasts, only over the past year or so. And, I kind of had a light bulb moment where I was like, well, why don't we just produce a Polish podcast, or Polish culture? Because that's what this is going to be about. It's going to be kind of a two-part segment. There will be a bit about Polish culture. Our first episode is actually on pierogi, so I encourage you to tune in to listen to that. Yes. But we'll also have segments on Polish history and customs. But at the end of it, each month we will have a Polish Saint of the Month reflection, and it's going to be designed to be more obscure ones. St. John Paul, we all know the statistic that he canonized more saints than all of his predecessors combined. Mm-hmm. However, so many of them are these Polish saints that are, they're not medieval saints. They're people that have been with us in the past century. I mean, there's people alive today that have known these people. Right. And so it's kind of a way to create a connection with people outside of what they're used to. So that's really where this effort came from.
So is it once a week, once a month?
It'll be monthly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to premiere on the first Monday of every month.
Okay.
And there's a strategic reason behind that, because we have one of our organizations at St. Joseph's Polish Apostolate is the St. Joseph History Society, and it's done a great job of cataloging our history. And it's interesting. I've been associated with several parishes over the years, all up and down the East Coast, and I don't think I've seen a parish that has had such a devotion to its history, but also one that has kept it. Mm-hmm. There was we have the old school building next to the beautiful church, and there was a room that was just packed to the top with stuff, and it wasn't junk. It was photos and trophies and memorabilia and vestments. All these things that were not properly displayed and cataloged. And the History Society has done a great job of putting this together, and it's a museum room now. Mm. But because of that, we have this wealth of information as well about the church. And the History Society has a tour on the second Saturday of every month seasonally. The first one is actually, it just passed. The next one will be November the 9th, I believe, that Saturday. Okay. So the podcast will premiere before one of these tours as a way to kind of get people to come out and see our beautiful church and learn more about it.
Yeah. And it is beautiful. And they do. My son took a tour there with the Boy Scouts not long ago. And first of all, I like any church that includes a docent amongst its folks, someone who can actually give a proper tour guide and is particularly aware of it. But I'll be honest, I worked in the diocese for a long time. And I haven't been to every church in the diocese just because, the nature of my job is to go to a church when there's a reason to go to the church. And we, during the novena to St. Paul that we had St. Joseph that we had a couple of years ago, we decided to kick it off at St. Joe's Polish, and it kicked off and ended at St. Joe's Polish in Camden. And that was my first time walking in. And the first time I walked in, I was so angry that it wasn't the cathedral, because it is so beautiful and so nice, and has such a great organ, and it's just a wonderful church in the middle of downtown Camden, and it's. I wish I could spend more time there. Matter of fact, I'm going to find a reason to spend more time there.
And now the first time I was there was covering a recent Boy Scouts event. may not already been mentioned, and that was my first time, and I was shocked at all the relics that were along in the church, and you were kind of alluded to the room that was full of items that, like you said, wasn't junk but historical. There's a huge nativity scene.
Yeah, the
down there.
Shopcock. You saw that?
Yeah, and I was like, what is going on here, and how do I not know about this? So it took me about 1.5 years to get there after being in South Jersey for that time, but everybody should go. I agree.
It is a great place to go. The relics are beautiful. A lot of the artwork towards St. John Paul II is really lovely too. The stained glass is unbelievable on either side. And something you said earlier about we'll call it tenacity of the Polish Apostolate. I was a part of the merger that happened with the cathedral, and while at that time for those parishioners who were there, it might have been a tense time period. I will tell you that I was a part of many mergers, and it was actually one of the nicest mergers I was ever a part of. So if there was hostility, it did not come forward, and I would hope to believe that now that merger's through, we've seen the benefits of it. And I do think one of the benefits of that is the apostolate. We have a number of apostolates in the diocese, and I'm often impressed by the strength of them and their ability to reach out further than their territorial area. They really do bring people together who are of like cultures, and every apostolate that's in the diocese is one that fosters good things. So I'm glad, if for no other reason than this podcast exists, then your podcast, that is, then the apostolate has done its job. Because the beauty of that is now you're going to be able to go beyond even South Jersey. Your podcast will be able to go worldwide. I can only hope that people in the homeland will listen to it in English and appreciate hearing about their culture in South Jersey.
Yeah, and it's I appreciate everything you said too, just as an ethnic Pole, but it's part of the podcast too is designed to bring people into an understanding of the culture that may not know about it. We have many aspects of Polish saints and Polish culture that is kind of has this wide appeal. I mean, St. John Paul II, of course, is a great example, but the image of Our Lady of Częstochowa, St. Maximilian Kolbe, there's kind of a ton of saints and a ton of cultural references that are relevant outside of the community. And it's, the interesting thing, and this is, the Polish parishes, ethnic parishes, have kind of become this sort of endangered species around the country. Where my family is originally from, upstate Pennsylvania, was one of the first areas where this kind of consolidation started, and it was not done well. And I think the church, by and large, has learned from this. There still is some pain out there, but it's rooted in pain. A lot of these churches, part of the reason is to educate people also on Poland's history, because it infers the American Catholic history. When Poles came here, they were not welcomed with open arms, and they came from a land that Poland ceased to exist for 123 years. A lot of people don't know that because it was divided between the Russians and the Germans and the Austrians. And their sense of religion, their sense of national identity was so suppressed, particularly in the wake of there was an 1863 January uprising in Poland, which will be the top of our January episode. Yeah. And it was devastating. So when Poles came here, they built their country here, and they did it in their church. Because to be Polish, by and large, was to be Catholic. The two were so, in common parlance. There's actually, even today in Belarus, if you are Catholic, you are called Polish.
Oh, wow.
It is so identified. So when, these churches, they've gotten very protective of these churches because they've been kind of under threat in their homeland for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. And then, for it to come here, it's a very different attitude towards, sort of the immigrants that the church has today than it was when the time that St. Joseph's was being built and all these other Polish parishes.
So would it have been around that time that the larger population of Polish started coming into America? Years like the 1800s?
Yeah, so there were a couple waves of Polish immigration. The main one that really, when there was, I think it was approximately 3.5 million Poles that came to this country, where it was between the years 1870 and 1914, right before the quotas and the First World War kind of cut that off. And then there was another influx that came about after the Second World War and into the 80s with Solidarity. So you kind of have a couple separate waves of immigration from the Poles. And of course, there were earlier Poles as well. Sure. Everybody talks about General Pulaski and General Kosciuszko, these kind of Revolutionary War heroes. But the large mass really came about around the year 1900. And that's what built these they even call them it's funny you said you wished it was the cathedral. So these are actually called Polish cathedral style churches. Yeah. Oh. So it's kind of, they put their heart and soul into these beautiful edifices, and also their neighborhoods too. I mean, a lot of the housing that's around St. Joe's Polish in Whitman Park was built by savings and loan associations, the Kosciuszko Savings and Loan primarily, for immigrants to save money, to build their own home, to, like I said, they were here, they were able to, within, some constraints, practice their lives and their religion as they certainly more so than at home.
Yeah.
And you've kind of alluded to at the very beginning that the Polish Apostolate is here in Camden, with the idea of bringing Polish from everywhere to enjoy this church deep in that culture. Do you find that people that there are a lot of Polish from across South Jersey and Pennsylvania and maybe even Central Jersey? I know Mike is rolling his eyes.
It doesn't exist.
Like, do you find that the apostolate and the church itself are a draw to those from across, not just Camden?
Absolutely. And it's we talked about this a little bit earlier, but if you are of Polish descent in South Jersey and you're not a transplant from somewhere else, you have ancestors that came to St. Joe's. Mm. It is the only, that was, to be Polish in South Jersey was to be from there. And, I've experienced this. I've been, into genealogy for several years as well. And I always had this drive to go to the places that my ancestors were. And there's something, when you get in touch with it, you get this connection almost immediately. And St. Joe's is, it was constructed between 1912 and 1914. And with very little changes since. There was the major renovation in the wake of the Second Vatican Council. The chandeliers were changed, some statues here and there. But by and large, you walk into that church, you're walking into the 20s, and you're seeing these same things that your ancestors saw. And I think there's a connection there. It's being Jesuit educated, you're taught to find God in all things, and you certainly can walk into any church and any place really and find a way to find God. But there are places, these kind of axis mundi, I think, that exist where it just invokes prayer. It invokes this sense of peace. And I've seen it written about by people who have come to St. Joe's, and there's this sense of place there. And it's, in the neighborhood, you don't expect it. It kind of does come out of nowhere. People drive by it on 676, but you walk in and there is a sense of peace that pervades the space, and it comes out of the architecture, but it comes from the history itself as well. Mm-hmm. It has that effect on people. And there's so many different ways it appeals. I've said this before. I think you could be the most cynical atheist and walk into St. Joe's and appreciate it for its beauty, if nothing else. But if you have any kind of a faith, even if you're struggling with your faith, I think it's a place that you can find something. I really, truly believe that.
I agree. And because me, I'm not one to hyperbole, to fall into hyperbole, and very rarely to be impressed by anything that other people like. But that church has to be witnessed. We actually, one of my favorite things was being able to photograph it and us being able to live stream from there, just to make sure that, because I think for a lot of people, first of all, I mean, there are realities to the situation that church is in. It's in the middle of Camden. You know, Camden certainly has a reputation for itself, and certainly it is in much better straits than it was back when I was a kid. But there are still people who are uncomfortable coming into Camden. And it's worth the effort. It's a simple drive. It's right off of 295, a mere few blocks away. It has a wonderful parking space. You do drive through a bunch of the neighborhoods, but I've never had any issues while I've been there. And you really will benefit from being in the presence of, our vicar general from time to time will talk to me about, he has a love of architecture. And, I grew up basically in a mission church, right? I mean, it was, a crucifix away from being, or the only thing keeping it from a Protestant church was the fact that it had a crucifix in it. That's how plain it was. So I never really had an appreciation for artwork and beauty, and I didn't travel much as a child, so I didn't see anything. I just thought all churches were like that. And then as I grew up, I got to go other places, and I've been impressed by many things. And since then, I've been to the Vatican and stuff like that. And the Vicar General was explaining to me, Father Hughes, that the reason churches were designed like that was so that the common people who may not be able to read or might not have attachment to artwork or access to artwork could see the beauty and majesty of heaven every time they walked into church. It gave them the goal of something to see when, at the end of their days, which is why in the Catholic Church, so many of those historically impressive churches are just so ornate and have such rich colors and artwork and everything related to that. So there is something to be said for that. And I will say that when I go into a church that is particularly beautiful and real thought has been put into what appears on the walls and the windows and the ceilings, right down to the red carpet going down the middle, that really does have an effect on you. For those of us who are capable of seeing clearly, having that kind of imagery in front of you will really move you, as much as people who are more musically inclined will be affected by music. So having access to a church like that, particularly in a community when they were first coming over as immigrants, did not have a lot. They wouldn't have had access to much other than, working their jobs and staying alive. To have a church like that, to be there and have that sense of community, I suspect that's one of the reasons why the Polish community is so tight, is because the troubles they had, both in the homeland and then once they came to our shores over decades and centuries, that's a tight community. Difficulty breeds connectivity, I think.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. But there is one thing though that I wanted to touch on what you said, Mike, about the realities of the neighborhood that we're in. It's there was a, I think you have to honor the pain of the people, because there's people who have kind of stopped coming to St. Joe's who've gone there because of the neighborhood, and there was a reason that they didn't feel safe there anymore. A lot of people that don't. But I say this all the time about St. Joe's in Camden. If Jesus were walking the earth today, he would be in South Camden. Yeah, he would be right there, and I think the neighborhood has been seen as this great challenge to St. Joe's survival and its viability, because it looks scary to people who live in the suburbs. But it is. If you can recognize that this is a beautiful church, you can recognize the beauty in the neighborhood around it. You can recognize that this is where Christ would be. If you come to St. Joe's, if you are looking for a sense of to enrich your Christianity, come to St. Joe's for that reason, in spite of your fear. Yeah.
It's true.
I know. I'm eating this up. I love it. No, I just love that.
I worked in Camden my entire career, so nothing unnerves me about Camden anymore.
Me neither.
And it hasn't for decades. But that's a great point. And you're absolutely right. That is exactly where Christ would have been, or would be, if he was walking amongst us today. You're 100% accurate.
So, we've talked about the church and a little bit about the podcast. I'd like to get back to that, but let's talk a little bit about how you got involved in that. And you kind of said you come from north
Northeast PA. Yeah.
North. Okay. And did you say upstate PA? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean the terms are kind of
I never heard that
Pennsylvania's so
before,
large, you have to
upstate
kind
PA.
of, it can be sectionalized so many different ways. I think upstate is a relative term.
Okay.
I think if you're in Scranton, upstate is probably even further than I would think of it.
Okay. But you came from upstate PA in a like a Polish community?
In a roundabout sense. So I was born and raised here in New Jersey. My home parish is the old St. Jude's in Blackwood. That is no longer there. It's now part of Our Lady of Hope. So that's where I grew up. I received all my sacraments there. My grandparents, they had, I was raised with my grandparents. I lived with them growing up. One of the reasons why I think I was so connected to my heritage, because they were more recent.
Right.
Even their grandparents were the generation that immigrated. So I'm a fifth generation. So I'm pretty far removed, all things considered. But my grandparents, they were from the coal region. So to get around the whole upstate, what have you terminology, from this little town called Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania. And it was a mile square town. And it was kind of developed around the coal industry. But there were 6 Catholic churches in this town. And 2 of them were Polish. Because there were different sections of Poland at the time that they kind of catered to different areas, and I had ancestors in both. But I grew up with this unique sense of where I came from. My grandfather's parents were still living up until my great grandmother died when I was 10, so I knew them. I knew them well, and it was they spoke Polish. They kept many of the traditions alive. The Vigilia, which is the Christmas Eve dinner. is incredibly important. But we actually, so the parish that we went to was, my family was St. Joseph's Polish in Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania,
There you go.
oddly enough. So it was, that was kind of what inferred, my understanding of the faith, because, St. Jude's was, it was, I've heard it called a Bishop Guilfoyle special. It was, it was dedicated actually during the pontificate of John Paul I, which is kind of interesting. But it was this, it was a modern church. It was kind of like what you said. It was the only thing keeping it from being a Protestant church was kind of a crucifix.
Yeah.
So I would see that on every Sunday, but then when I'd go to visit my great-grandparents, I'd walk into St. Joe's Polish in Mount Carmel, or Our Mother of Consolation in Mount Carmel, and it was just like, wow, there was something there. And that's the same feeling that I get at St. Joe's in Camden. Because when the mergers started happening, I was in high school, and I was able to drive at this point. So I kind of started looking around and seeing, where I wanted to go to church. And St. Joe's Polish had received a matching grant from the state at that time, as did the cathedral, and there was a big write-up in the Courier Post. So one Sunday, I took a ride up there with my mom, and we walked in, and I never walked out. But then, into my adult life, my Polish heritage, even as my great-grandparents and my grandmother have passed, it became even more important to me. I got involved with different organizations. And then I met my wife, who is a second-generation Polish American.
Oh, okay.
I actually met her in the Polish folk dance group in Philadelphia.
Nice.
So, we speak Polish at home, and, most of her family is in Poland. And, it's been something that I've just kind of jumped into the deep end of in my life. And it's so many of these... I've heard it all the time, like, these ethnic organizations are dying, or, people aren't getting involved anymore, which, is and isn't true. But, I think it's because it isn't a case of having been tried and found wanting. It's a case of wanting and not tried, and there's people who, when they learn that they're Polish and they're from St. Joe's in Camden, and they come there, I think they get it a little bit. But you're just touching your toe in, and that really is where this podcast comes from. It's because if you can't make it to St. Joe's in Camden every Sunday or not, you can listen to our podcast and you can get your dose of Polish culture. But it's not just culture or history too, though. That was why we did the Polish Saint Reflection, because this is something that, regardless of whether you're Polish or not, if you're Catholic, you can understand, or you're not even necessarily Catholic, I suppose, but. That's the point of all of this. I've recognized in my entire life the value of this, and now I'm trying to bring it to the rest of the diocese and beyond, if possible.
I love it. That's why why I'm helping another podcaster take a dive into the pool, because even though he is the competition, I'm looking forward to it. Actually, like I said, Pete Sanchez is the one who's going to really have an axe to grind about this, because now we have Talking Saints, and we have this that's going to be featuring a Polish saint. Either we're going to have crossovers, or those who are going to be fighting in the driveway.
I don't know about that.
I fear. I don't know.
Well, y'all did go to the same school.
We did.
Yeah.
Yes, we were both Hawks. I was 09 and he was, I forget, some years before that. I think he was like 03 or something.
Yeah, but I'm 94, so that makes me better than everybody.
Okay. Hawk will never die. All
Hawk
around.
will never die. There's the pennant right there, as a matter of fact. Matter of fact, I haven't admitted to this yet, and I haven't asked Maria D'Antonio about it yet. But since we brought up the famous catchphrase of the St. Joe's Hawks, did you remember at Maria's daughter's wedding, Jen, that there were these 2 big bottles of champagne that you could sign?
Yes.
Yeah. Her daughter, Gina, went to Villanova. So they had these gold paint pens, and I put Mike and Jennifer Walsh, and then underneath of it, the Hawk will never die. I haven't asked if anybody over there has seen it yet, but then again, at the same time, my handwriting is so terrible it may have been indecipherable.
Yes, actually, that's very accurate.
But yes, so we have a love of St. Joe's in this vault,
and we've all been ruined by the Jesuits.
We have,
which is great.
I'm as argumentative as any Jesuit. That's what I tell people.
There you go.
So, in addition to all this fascinating history and genealogy, can I bring up what other thing I think is fascinating about what you do? And Mike Walsh is going to love this too.
I do love it.
Sure. I'm open book.
All right. You are a tugboat operator. Am I correct?
That's correct.
I mean,
how exciting is that, right?
I know, right? I know. When I told Mike, he was like, no, I always wanted to do that.
I did always want to do that. How does one become a tugboat operator?
Oh, boy. Well, you kind of have to get kicked out of every, really normal land profession, I think. I actually do call it the Island of Misfit Toys.
Okay. It would be perfect for it. All right.
Yeah. I mean, in a practical sense, they're kind of different ways.
Yeah.
You can get a job working as a deckhand and work your way up, or you can go to one of these 6 maritime academies throughout the nation. I actually did a little bit of both. I was a deckhand for a little while after college when I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do and where my heart lay. And so I did that for a little while, and then I went to a college called SUNY Maritime College in the Bronx, which is where I got my professional certification. And I've been doing it for, I guess almost about 15 years now, which is crazy to think about.
Where do you operate?
So I'm currently in New York Harbor, out of Staten Island.
Just a few small boats up there. Okay.
Oh, just a little bit.
Yeah,
just a little bit. Yeah, it's not the one of the greatest, largest national harbors in the world or anything. But I spent most of my career here in Philadelphia. Actually, it was up until recently. It was just about this time last year. I relocated to New York, and there were different reasons for that that I won't get into. But yeah, I spent most of my career here in Philadelphia.
That's great. Mm-hmm. And what is a day-to-day of a tugboat operator like? I mean, genuinely, I'm actually incredibly curious about this.
I mean, it's fairly ritualized in the sense that you have a watch system. So I do a 6 on, 6 off watch with the other operator, so I'm on from midnight until 6 in the morning, and then noon until 6 in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. So 6 hours on, 6 hours off. But it's, I always compare it to the best way I can compare it is to being a fireman. The tugboat is the firehouse. You go and you stay in the firehouse, and then when there's a fire, you go out and fight. Except we're not fighting fires; we're docking ships. So that's pretty much how it works. And there's various tasks, maintenance, and we have an engineer board who takes care of the engine, all the electronic systems and things like that, and the deckhand who handles the lines and all that, and then the operators, the captain and the mate who run the boat.
Have you had a lot of rescues? Like, is it normal to have to go out like once a day?
Rescues or
no?
What?
You both look at me like I'm crazy.
Just out of curiosity.
What do you think about it?
You know what? She did so good pronouncing your name that
just let it go.
That I'm really happy this happened. I'm also really happy that it's recorded, and she knows full well I will not edit it out. So, listeners,
Don't.
you're welcome.
No, don't you also like if a boat's stuck, pull it in? Don't you do that too?
That is incredibly rare for us to have to deal with something like
so
that. I mean,
Okay,
there have
curious.
been
Answer.
What do you think a tugboat does? Well, she can't speak now. She's now literally fanning herself because she's so embarrassed with herself. All right, tell you what, Michael.
I thought that
for the benefit. No, wait, stop. For the benefit of the listener, can you let us know what a tugboat does?
Okay, so I mean, there are different types of tugboats, but essentially, what I'm involved in is called ship assist, which is in the name is we assist ships. Ships are made to go forward. They're not really even made to go backwards. So when they get into a harbor and they're going towards the dock, they have to stop at a certain point and dock. But the physics of current and wind and all the other natural elements can make that difficult, if not impossible, for certain ships to handle on their own. So that's where a tugboat comes into play. And tugboats just essentially push and pull to the dock. You know, that's really. I mean, there's another way of thinking of it is that you're kind of like a valet for ships.
Oh, I like that. I love that idea. I'm a ship valet.
And that was part of my old job when I was here in Philadelphia. I was a pilot, which is a different section of it, which is where you go up on the ship and you actually use the tugs and the ship to guide it to its berth.
I think at this point, Jen would like to, at some point, to request of you the opportunity to do a feature on you for this Catholic Star Herald, a day in the life of a tugboat operator, which after the last 5 minutes, I now think is very important that she have this opportunity. Okay, so I grew up.
Mike Walsh.
Don't blame us. We didn't say anything.
Does it rescue me a little
you should
bit
really.
of
I
like
feel
if somebody's stuck.
Yes,
you
I mean
want-
yes. If there's maritime rules that he has to assist if there is somebody with a broken down ship or a ship is on fire or somebody jumps off a bridge or all of those things.
And all of those things I have actually come across at one time or another in my career.
As a person on the water, he has to assist to the best of his abilities.
Let's just go back to the Polish.
I'm so happy. I cannot tell you people how happy I am right now.
That's great.
Okay, here we go. Keeping it all in. I don't care. Going back to the podcast. Okay. You've recorded episode 1. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit, without giving away too much, tell us a little bit about episode 1 specifically.
Sure. So, true to its name, Pierogi to prayer. The inaugural episode the cultural topic is on pierogi. And this is the one thing that I will point out in my episode, that you do not upset a Pole more than when you say pierogis. Because pierogi is already plural.
It's already plural.
Is already
thought about
plural.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
So
I'm
there
writing
you go.
that
So
Jen
you've
has
already
now
had
learned
something.
2 things today.
There you go. So now, so if you'd like to learn more about pierogi, because there are different types and regional variations, and there's but leading into the prayer part, there actually is a patron saint of pierogi, among other things. But his name is Saint Hyacinth, Święty Jacek in Polish. But he is the featured saint of the month. So those are the 2 features of the prayer. The other feature is our interview with Father Adam Ciechowski. Ciechecki is actually, but that's another story. 4 years later, he's actually his family's from Mount Carmel as well. In an interesting twist,
way.
yeah, believe it or not. We actually thought we might have been related at one point, because I have relatives in my family that are Ciechocki, but he's really Ciechecki.
Oh man, that would have been so cool.
So yeah, so we thought maybe we might be, but we're not. But anyway, so as a way to introduce him and to introduce the Apostolate and the church, we did an interview with him. So that will be part of it too. So the first podcast will be a little bit longer than normally. We're going to aim for about 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the content per month. This one will probably be a little bit longer, but that's kind of the bare bones of the first podcast.
Well, we are genuinely excited as we're wrapping up this podcast. We are genuinely excited to have a new member of the podcast family. This episode's coming out. Our episode's coming out a couple weeks early, but we will make sure to notify all of our listeners when your first episode is up. So we're very excited about that, and we'll include all the links. And when you're ready to go, we'll certainly do all the shares and all that fun stuff. Great. Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you.
So many reasons.
So many reasons.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
I really
Dziękuję, as we would say in Polish, by the way.
Look at that. That's nice.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, that's good. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll be back again next week with another episode. See you, everybody.